As a business owner, we want to have a KPI that can help us understand from what I've invested and put into the business, am I getting a good return? And benchmarking that against other options I have available to me. I'm going to share you with the secret of return on capital employed, or return on capital. This is a KPI that is used by big businesses worldwide to decide and determine whether a project is worth going ahead with or not. There's three elements of return on capital employed. There's firstly profit, then there is working capital, and the last element is fixed assets. Let's break down each. Profit, in this example, we're going to refer to the profit of your business. And specifically for the calculation of return on capital employed, it's annualized profit. This can be for a specific project, it can be for a specific location, or for the business overall. And in this example, we're going to look at the business overall. Number one, annualized profitability. Number two is working capital. Working capital, as we touch on in a lot of videos, is debtors plus stock plus work in progress minus our creditors, is ingredient number two. And ingredient number three is our fixed assets. These are the assets that go into the business to hopefully help us produce a return. And the reason we use working capital and fixed assets is we have opportunity cost. An opportunity cost is a fancy way of saying I've put money into working capital and I've put money into fixed assets. What other things can I do with that money? Because I could potentially stop doing my business tomorrow, liquidate my fixed assets, liquidate my working capital, and I could put that money into something else. To demonstrate the power of return on capital, let's look at a couple of examples. The calculation for return on capital or return on capital employed is the following. Annualized profit divided by your working capital, adding together your fixed assets. So working capital plus fixed assets, and have that number divided by your annualized profit. Let's demonstrate that through an example. Business A has an annualized profit of $500,000, working capital of $500,000, and fixed assets of $750,000, which means the total amount of working capital plus fixed assets is $1.25 million. Business B has $750,000 annualized profit. It has $1.25 million worth of working capital and $1.75 million worth of fixed assets. So their combined working capital and fixed assets is $3 million. On face value, you would think that the $750,000 business would be a better business because you're getting $750,000 worth of return versus the $500,000 business. However, the numbers don't show that to be the case. Business A has a 40% return on capital, which is the $500,000 divided by the $1.25 million. Whereas business B only has a 25% return on capital because to generate the $750,000 worth of profit, it has to have $3 million worth of funds invested into working capital and fixed assets. Business A is the better business because it requires less resources to be invested in it to generate the return. What return on capital is telling us? What's the least I can put in to get the most back? Business B is giving me 50% more profit, but is asking from me almost 3 times more the amount of fixed assets and working capital compared to business A. To take this one step further, profit is the output. We want to maximize our output, and working capital and fixed assets are the input. We want to minimize the amount of inputs we put in relative to our outputs. If I can buy a share for $1 and that share can go to $100, I wish I put a lot of money into that $1 share. Of course, there's no guarantee it's going to go that direction, but we want to put the least amount of input for the most amount of output. The worst business to invest in is a business that is high on working capital and/or fixed assets requirements. I want to give you an example of the worst business I've seen from a financial mechanics perspective. It's not that the business owners weren't really smart, weren't hardworking, just simply the mathematics of what were involved made it the worst business I'd seen to be involved with to get any form of return. These were the ingredients. It had a very high demand on working capital. It had a very high demand on fixed assets. It was a very asset intensive business. And to cap it all off, it had very low gross profit percentages. So if you're ever looking at investing in a business and it has high working capital requirements, high fixed assets requirements, and it has low GP, as I'm putting my hand up high when I should be putting it down low, run for the hills. Don't put a dime into it. For reference, I would define low GP and low gross profit percentage as anywhere between 20 and 25%. That is terribly low. It's not where we want to be by any stretch, but this is where this business was living. And they were wondering why they couldn't get a return. Their return on capital was around about 4 or 5%, and they were profitable. You're almost better off putting your money in a bank account, even with interest rates being as low as what they are. A benchmark for what your business should be aiming for with return on capital employed is 30%. That is the blue ribbon, that is where we want to be. As a privately owned business, we need to be running at least a 30% return on capital. Minimum 20%. Anything below that, it's highly unlikely to be worth your risk.